Amy, welcome to the Foodie with a Life podcast. I am just beyond honored that you're spending time with me today to talk about toddler food and all the things around mealtime. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell me, why did you start Yummy Toddler Food?
So, my oldest daughter just turned 11, and when she turned 1, it was like all of the rules for feeding her that I knew changed because, like, I understood how to feed a baby, but then she turned 1 and she was able to eat more food, but she wasn't able to eat all of the foods from a chewing perspective. There were like nutritional things I was very aware of that were different from like the way that we were eating. Um, and at that time, all of the quote unquote kid recipes were geared toward older kids. And there was nothing specifically for this younger age when, like, there's a lot of developmental everything going on. And they suddenly start being able to say no. Their appetite can be all over the place. And it just seemed like there was this missing piece of how do you do this phase and sort of set the foundation for a relationship with food that is going to help your child be confident and happy at the table in like a range of settings. And
Mhm.
like at that time, it was like a hobby, and I was just sort of doing it because I was professionally worked in magazines and was a recipe developer. And so it seemed like a natural side project. And then the longer I did it, the more I realized that like there were so many parents out there that felt similarly and feel similarly to the way that I felt then and just needed like the practical advice, but also just reassurance.
Mhm. Yeah. And you now you have three kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so, did you feel like each kid had a different trajectory around food? Like, were some just great eaters from the beginning, or they were all kind of similar?
The third one was the most different from the other two. My girls were both like really into solids as babies. My middle kiddo is like the most adventurous eater. She is totally an anomaly. Like her favorite food is sushi. Like she will try anything. She loves cooking. She's just like, that's her personality. And my son was very much not into solids. Like I don't think he ate like a full meal until he was like 17 months old. Like he just was not, he sort of just didn't care. Like
Mm,
and
yeah.
he's the one who like he has just a different appetite. Like sometimes he's starving and a lot of times he's not. And it really it kind of helped me professionally to have that experience because I just was like, there's nothing wrong with the way that he's eating. He's just different than his sisters were. And it's my job to be able to adjust and to respond to what he needs at meals. Um, so that definitely was a unique experience, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think, like, I remember being in Peps, which I don't know if you have Peps where you are,
I don't think so.
but it's basically it's like a mom's group
Okay.
when you first have a kiddo, and I just remember the moms being really like kind of zoomed in on like how many ounces exactly, did my kiddo eat? I know they can eat more.
Mm-hmm.
And, um, it was a group of first time moms. So none of us knew what we were doing, of course. But I just kind of felt like, gosh, it's so interesting that when it comes to adults, we understand that sometimes you're hungry and sometimes you're not, and sometimes there's just those fluctuations and just like normal human
Mm-hmm.
behavior. And, even person to person, like some people are just hungrier and some people are just not.
Right.
And it's like but then when it comes to babies and solids, it's like, especially for first time parents, you're trying to figure it out.
Right.
And the spectrum for normal is just so wide. And it's
Right.
really hard as a new parent to go, so is this normal? Is this fine? And and you kind of lose like your confidence in as a person going, this is a person. Sometimes they're hungry and sometimes they're not, or they might just be a very hungry baby. And some babies are like that,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and like there's a common question of like, how do I know when my baby is done eating? If you've ever fed a baby, it's very obvious. But the fact that like our
Yeah,
culture
they
has
stop eating.
so yeah, they like throw stuff or they put their hands up, like it's very clear. But
Yep.
just the way that our culture talks about food, it's made us trust like such a basic form of communication. And then, especially as babies, I was just talking to someone about this morning. She was like, we did baby led weaning. He ate all of the things. And now it's like, I don't even know what to do with them. And there's this missing piece in the baby food education of what happens after that. Because no matter how you start solids, your baby is going to become a toddler. And they're going to
Hmm.
go through a phase of development where they are testing boundaries like they are supposed to. Like, this is exactly what they are supposed to be doing. They're they're going to explore boundaries and test them and understand like they can say no, and also their growth slows down. So like a lot of times like 14 months, 16 months, 17 months, a child will stop eating a lot of foods that they used to, in part often because they're not as hungry. And when a parent sees that, the first assumption is that is a picky eater. And now I have to fix it. And if you went into it knowing that sometimes they're going to eat a lot, sometimes they're going to eat less, and you're probably never going to accurately predict it, your perspective and your ability to just be with that kid would be entirely different. So I try a lot to remind people of that. And I'm not saying that this is easy. Like it is incredibly difficult to feed a child and stay calm all the time, just because it can feel like throwing darts sometimes. But if you can understand like the range of normal, there's a lot less pressure to fix a lot of things.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's so wise. This kind of answers that, but what's your philosophy on picky eaters?
I actually don't I don't personally use the term. I try when I use the word to put it in quotes, because I think that we are doing a disservice to a great number of children by labeling them that, because it is not a positive word. And when a kid
Mm-hmm.
hears that term, they know that they're being labeled something that is negative. And it doesn't help. Like, I would much rather a parent say, my child is usually never hungry for dinner, which is much more specific. And then you can have like a starting place for sort of figuring out if there's something to do about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or my child is struggling to eat a range of textures. My child doesn't seem to like the same foods as me. Like, if you can just say the thing that is really causing you the stress, the likelihood that you're going to be able to consider the factors that are at play, it just is greater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's even listening to you describe it, that's such a more specific
Mm-hmm.
description
Right. It's like
to
name
what's
name
happening.
your worry, name your concern,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can actually go from there. If and
Yeah.
especially since like everybody uses the word differently. So it doesn't mean the same thing to anyone. It just means that there's like a problem that we need to try to combat or fix, or like it sets up
Mm-hmm.
an oppositional relationship when I just don't think that that is the best option. Or I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that that's the fastest way to have like a happier mealtime dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I totally agree. top 3 tips to help kids eat a colorful and seasonal diet during the toddler years. And I'll piggyback this with I have one kiddo and a second one on the way. And my daughter I feel like she was always kind of a great eater. I cook, still do, a lot of our food. There's very little processed food in our house. And just the expectation of what we eat and like what's normally available and on the counter is just certain things. We don't have chips on the counter. There's really like no candy within eyesight, that kind of stuff. Um, and so my experience with this is that I mean, of course, like she wants cookies and candy when it's around or when she sees it, just like any normal human would want. But she is not afraid of, she would love to eat a full bowl of watermelon for breakfast. That would just be fantastic for her, which is a bit of what she ate today. But, when she probably turned 3, a kid who was like eating sardines and pureed spinach as a tiny kiddo all of a sudden was having like much stronger preferences or just opinions. And my my thought around that is she started talking about smells a lot more. And so I asked our pediatrician and she was kind of like, oh, that's an interesting theory. But my theory is that something changes in their olfactory sense that might change their taste buds kind of around that 3-year-old marker. But again, like my theory on parenting is like, you get pregnant and like now you have to love this person with an open palm. You can't, it's going to be different every single day. And so just maybe we're just in a time where butternut squash is not the thing, and that can be okay. So my question is like, we know that kids are going to have these tendencies depending on where they're at, from a developmental standpoint. Kind of how are you helping your kids who have different preferences, right? There's 3 kids at the table, eat colorful seasonal food and still kind of respect those boundaries that they're putting up.
So one of the things is to have the food in your house that you enjoy eating yourself so that you can show them what you're eating. Like, even if the kids don't eat the thing, even knowing what it is really important, because at some point they will go to school or they'll be with grandma or they'll be someplace else. And you want them to have a foundation where they can identify what things are, and feel like safe potentially to try the thing, even when they're not at home. So have foods around would be the first thing. And talk about what they are in a normal way, as like when you're with friends, you might talk about like ingredients or like a really yummy meal that you had, just like, or watch a cooking show, or like normal interactions with food to build like the base literacy of what foods are. And then look for ways, especially like around this age of 3, 4, 2.5, depending on the kid. How can I give this child a feeling of agency? What can I tweak as I'm getting a meal ready or I'm sitting down at the table to make them feel like they are in control? Because when you think about how we typically feed kids, we're like giving them a plate of food. They may or may not have had any information about what was coming. And once you're in this toddler phase, kids really want to do things themselves. Like, that is their whole reason for being. And so even if it's like, we're having pesto pasta tonight, do you want to go pick out the pink plate or the yellow plate? Or I've got spaghetti noodles and I think you might want to cut them up. Do you want to get the kid scissors and then I can help you cut them? like give them something to do, which does not mean turning dinner into a project. It's like one of the things that you would have done for them, you just let them do on their own. And yes, that might take a couple more minutes, but if like the shift in the mood can be so fast when you do something like that, that to me it is totally worth it. I was visiting a friend over the weekend, and there was like a conflict around breakfast. And I said to my daughter, I was like all the kids wanted to sit at the counter, and there was only 2 chairs. So I was like, what if you pretend that you're the waitress and you help get the older girls their breakfast, and then we switch? And like, it didn't actually play out. Like we sort of started, and then they got like, but it changed the mood from like contentiousness to, oh, I like have the power to do this thing. Um,
Hmm.
and and I think also, like, if you feel like you're going into meals stressed about what the kids are going to eat, are there things you can do on your end that have nothing to do with the kids to take some of it off? And maybe that's like taking a shortcut so that the meal prep doesn't take as long. Maybe it's like buying shredded carrots or buying a salad kit instead of making everything from scratch. Like, if there's something on your side that can get you to the table in a better mood, that might also help, because then you may
Mhm.
have the bandwidth to engage with your child differently than if you have been like totally stressed out for the past half an hour and everybody needs something and now the child doesn't want to eat. Like, um, because I'm always talking about how when we get to the table, like I tell the kids what's there if they don't know, and then we talk about everything else. And it's easier to do that if you get to the table like without feeling like you're going to dissolve into a puddle. um, so like right now, I have a 4-year old, and we talk about like the most random things, like stories from our childhood, or like the groundhog outside, or he's starting to tell jokes. Like, it's, I think that that can help. It doesn't necessarily help get the kids to eat certain foods at each meal, but like big picture, it sort of sets a tone where it's safe for them to explore things on their own terms, which is
Mm.
kind of where we need to be looking a little bit, because the kids will grow and eat without us.
Um, Many people fall off meal planning during the summer, right? Schedules are out of whack, vacations, longer days. I mean, every like wonderful thing that comes along with the summer. But that, I'll find that will sometimes leave like that 7 a.m. or 7 p.m., panic of like, oh God, it's 7 o'clock. Like we got to eat dinner and make this
Yeah.
happen. So what kind of meal prep strategies, I guess, do you even meal prep in the summer? And if you do, what kind of strategies do you use so that the wheels don't fall off?
So I am not a huge meal prepper. I um, I have done it at times, and I just feel like the setting aside a chunk of time on the weekend is not practical for my family.
Mhm.
But I do cut up produce. And so I make sure that there is like cut up fruit. I sometimes make like one homemade snack. And then I do write down what we're having, or at least like generally what we're having, so that I have a sense. So in the summer, we have things like Caesar salad with chicken, or like a snack plate with hummus and pita chips and cut up vegetables, or there's like grilling night. We do a lot of tacos, and like pasta salad is a big thing. So like make a list of 10 dinners that your family enjoys at this time of the year. And then when you're making them, is there a part that you can double cook? So if um, like if your family really likes meatballs, that's just an example. Or if your family really likes like rice, like burrito bowls, you can double the meatballs, or you can double the rice and then stick the other half in the freezer. There are
Mhm.
ways to cook twice as much as you need so that you're stocking the freezer for yourself without setting aside like 3 hours on the weekend. Um,
Mhm.
or even like keeping hot dogs in the freezer, or if you see like deli turkey meat on sale of a brand you like, buying an extra package and putting that in the freezer. So just like the things that you know your family likes, rely on them a little bit more. And also remember that you don't actually have to cook dinner. Like you can, there's a whole lot of no cook options that are completely fine. Um, and you can like sort of space out. Like if you know you're going to the pool in the afternoon and you're going to get home at 6:30, I would not want to be starting like a from scratch dinner at that point. So I think just have some like ideas of what those go-tos are for your family, and then swap them in. Like there's like my family eats like a lot of the same foods each week, and I am grateful because it means like less work. And then like we go out to dinner and then there's other foods. So sort of look at it that way.
Mhm. Um, okay, I want to talk about specific kind of meal times, and we'll break it down like by category. So dinner. So you have three kids, and I love that you acknowledge that one size does not fit all for the people at your table. Um, Tell me how you plan dinner or even like planning grocery shopping. Like how do you think about that meal so that you're not making an individual meal for everybody at the table?
Yeah,
Does that question make sense?
yes. I 100% do not make individual meals. So usually I plan out what we're having, and we always have a pasta. We always have something with like beans and tortilla. And then like we usually have like a burgers or hot dogs or something. And then I just like sub in. A lot of times it's like what I need to make for work, or if depending on the time of year, like something with zucchini if there's tons of zucchini. And then so I've got like the main thing. Not everyone's gonna like the main thing. So we always have fruit on the table at dinner. We often have toppings for something. So like shredded cheddar or guacamole or I'm trying to think of another topping that we sometimes have. Like shredded chicken sometimes, like depending. So on our table, there's usually 3 to 5 things. And that doesn't mean I'm cooking 3 to 5 things. It means that I've like grabbed the jar of applesauce, or I got the container of cantaloupe that I had cut up the day before. Um, it
Mhm.
might mean I pick up a rotisserie chicken for the night that we're having black bean quesadillas because my son doesn't like beans. Like it's
Mhm.
sort of just like making sure that there is an option. Um,
Mhm.
and that's sort of how I grocery shop too. I make sure I have the main thing, and then I make sure I have like our go-to easy sides. Um, I was trying to explain this to someone the other day, and they like really didn't understand how I could think that that's not a lot of work. But I think I've been thinking about it this way for so long that there,
Mhm.
like, we do have this collection of like sides that kind of work for any meal so they don't get wasted. And they're just foods that we always have.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of think similarly, like, I don't really make like kid
Hmm.
meals. I don't really know how else to say
Yeah.
that, but like I make a proper meal that my husband and I will eat. Like last night we had panzanella. Well, it's like a Tuscan bread salad, has tomatoes. This one had cucumber and fresh mozzarella and I'm trying to think what else, toasted bread. And so capers, vinegar. So, but there's a few like things that my daughter loves. And so I made her, I made like the proper whole thing for us. And then on the side in a bowl, I had some of the cut up tomatoes, some of the cut up cucumbers, and I threw in some
Yeah.
olives because I know she likes all those foods. And I just did a drizzle of olive oil and salt and red wine vinegar, all things I know she likes. And then she could eat that. bowl of vegetables. I really didn't do anything different. I just kind of like presented it
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. Um, and she was fine.
Yep.
Like that was a perfectly fine option. And I just kind of look at it like um I'll have like the whole meal for us and that's also available for her. And then additionally, there'll be like some a la carte options from that whole meal,
Yep.
or like some things that really don't take any extra time, but were maybe in the fridge. Like if you had garbanzo
Right.
beans or you had, yeah, like you're saying, like cut, shredded cheese or something that you're like, if she doesn't eat XYZ, I know she'll probably eat this and then she'll have a little fat and protein and,
Yeah.
it'll sustain her.
Yeah. I think if you can remember that like, nobody has to have nobody has to have the same plate, and everyone can
Hmm.
use the same ingredients to get to a happy place. Um, Even just like we have like often we'll have like a big Caesar salad with bread and like chicken nuggets. Like I like that all like not the bread, but like the chicken like cut up as like a chicken Caesar salad, and my kids like them separate. Like there's nothing wrong with either
Hmm.
of those things. And so I
Yeah.
think just like it's a little bit of retraining your brain, but or even like if I make a stir fry and I'm putting bell pepper in it, I just leave some out raw because I know that two of my kids prefer peppers when they're super crunchy. And like I was going to cut them up anyway. It just means I've like
Hmm.
put a little bowl aside. So some of
Yeah.
that is just like trial and error over the years of sort of figuring out what those things are.
And also I'll say, like again, like non-attachment,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you're like, I did all the things to get you all your
Yep.
favorite foods at the table and you ate nothing,
Yep.
right?
Totally
It's
true.
like, okay,
Yeah. I mean,
well,
and at that point, I'm just like, wow, they were not hungry. Like
yeah,
it's, yeah.
right. Just that was just what it was
Yeah.
today. And if you're not hungry, that's fine. We'll have a good breakfast and we'll just move on.
Yep.
Okay, so lunch. So you obviously have such creative toddler ideas when it comes to food. Uh, you We're getting into summer. We're talking about summer camps and road trips. What are some good, like, what's like a good lunch idea that you would send your kids to, like either a summer camp or on a road trip with?
My kids love pesto pasta, so we do a lot of pesto pasta salad. So usually it's just pesto, pasta, sliced cucumbers, and then sometimes like diced up mozzarella and tomatoes, depending on the child or what we have. So we do that a lot. We do like a muffin lunch. So some sort of muffin, often with chocolate chips, with like a cheese stick and fruit. Like it's a very straightforward option.
Mhm.
Um, they pretty much all will eat like a turkey sandwich in one form or another. I mean, often one of them will take it apart. But it's still basically a sandwich. I think those are
Yep,
the ones
still
that
counts.
those are the ones that we turn to. My middle child loves yogurt and granola and fruit for lunch. So she will often request that, or she really likes cereal. So we have some of the easy lunch boxes, which have like it's a 3-section bento box. And the third section is like for a sandwich, but it fits a nice volume of cereal. So she'll put her
Hmm.
dry cereal in there and then take like a carton of milk and pour it in and then have like fruit and something else. And like the day that we figured that out as an option, I was like, this is amazing because we always have cereal. Like if we have nothing else in the house, we have cereal and we can figure out a way to get milk into like her lunchbox. So
That's so great. I love that. Okay, so that kind of brings us to breakfast. Breakfast can be something that kids just like only want those easy burn carbs. My daughter was on a kick. I'm watching it change, but she was on a kick where we call it jelly bread.
mm-hmm,
And so it's just like a piece of toast with, jam.
mm-hmm.
And it's good jam and it's like whole wheat bread, whatever, but it's bread and jam. Like she's just burning through this,
But she probably
immediately.
has a snack, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right. I mean, I send her like with an entire lunch to school that I pick her up at
Yeah.
noon, and she's already eaten that. I mean, she's eating plenty of
Right.
food. It's just like, you know, the category of breakfast, like what is she eating for breakfast? Like, you know what? She's eating jam and bread and some milk for breakfast. It's
She's
not
hitting most of
not
it. She's
my
hitting most of the food groups though. She's out,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. And I mean, it's actually funny. So she did a thing where she wanted 100 million things at breakfast, and all of a sudden I'm like running around making her a smoothie and doing this and that, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. We're having one option for breakfast, and if your thing right now is bread and jam, then assume that that is what's for
Mhm.
breakfast. Like, I'm not killing myself to make you 29 different things that you will maybe take 2 bites out of and then, move on. And she was kind of like, oh, great. I'll take that. And so we've been on like this jelly bread kick for a while. Like I said, I'm watching it change right now. So we'll be on something else, I'm sure, in a week. But do you have any like easy protein forward breakfasts that you're finding that, kids will mostly eat?
That so there's no way to answer this as like for everyone
Of course.
because you never
Yeah.
know. So we do a lot of smoothies with whole milk and frozen fruit and like nothing else.
Hmm.
Like it is I don't really know how we wound up there because I used to make them more complicated and then like two of my kids are not always ready to eat breakfast when they need to eat
Hmm.
breakfast. So this is something that I know will give them like a mix of nutrients and also will tide them over until they have snack. So we do like whole milk and mango or whole milk and frozen cherries. And it's like very thick and very yummy. It's kind of like soft serve.
Hmm.
So we
Yeah.
do,
You're like, this is a
yeah, I'm like,
milkshake.
this is
This is
delicious.
delicious. Yeah.
And we have like reusable pouches that we use for those. So we do that a lot. My older daughter makes her own breakfast. So she often has like a savory, like she likes beans on toast with cheese. I'm just like, I will buy you beans and you do what you want with them. Yeah,
Yep.
we have been in like an egg sandwich phase. So like scrambled eggs
Hmm.
on like a bagel or wheat bread or sourdough or whatever we happen to have. I feel like those are like the ones I'm trying to think. Like sometimes I have muffins, and so sometimes we do have muffins. I have a lot of muffin recipes with yogurt in them, so they're a little bit more
Mm.
substantial. But those are sort of like our weekday things that we turn to.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a go-to summer recipe right now? You said pesto pasta.
Making a lot of pasta salad recently. I feel like pasta salad and popsicles are like the two foods that we always have.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. Okay, so this is a question I ask everyone, and I think the idea of doing it all just needs to be canceled. No one should do it all.
Hmm.
We cannot do it all. And we should really be happy with that outcome. So, from a quality of life standpoint, what is one thing that you don't do that enables you to be successful?
Um, is it related to food or just like generally?
Just in general in life, like maybe you don't, I don't know, do your laundry. Maybe you send out for laundry. Maybe like, there are things that's just like you can just get bogged down by the stuff of life.
I feel like the one thing that has been helpful with parenting multiple children is I do not feel any sense of urgency to have my kids doing all of the activities. I feel
Mm-hmm.
no, I just am like, I will let them lead the way on what they want to do. And I am not going to make our lives so much more complicated by feeling like I need to schedule a lot of things. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that has been hugely helpful to just not have the pressure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is like when we moved to where we are, I did change the way I was running my business a little bit, which has helped the rest of my life a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have a photographer who comes to my house once a week now, which completely transformed my work. And I think that being able to see like those opportunities gives me space for sort of the rest.
I love that. That's so smart. Tell me about your new cookbook.
So Dinner Time SOS is coming out in August. It is, I was like, for your last question, I was like, could I answer it with the cookbook? So the cookbook is all like, it is all minimal chopping. So I started writing the book when my son was 1.5. And it was like, what can I do with a 1-year-old who needs me? How can I still get a dinner on the table that we all want to eat? So it's minimal chopping, like really smart use of frozen vegetables and ingredients. There's a lot of slow cooker and instant pot in one pan. There are like sandwiches and salads and pasta dishes with like different flavors and options. And so my goal really was to have a collection of recipes that busy families can turn to, like even if you only find like 5 that your family loves, but that you can make when you have 20 minutes and you don't have to chop everything from scratch. And then what can I do with the things that are left over? What should I keep in my pantry to make all of this easier? So I tried to make it like all of the supporting information that you need to actually pull it off, and then tips throughout on how to adjust for younger eaters, or if a child doesn't want a thing, or like all of the common questions that come up. So I hope it's a helpful resource. It is such a long process that it feels surreal. Like I finally got a copy and it's like, wow, like it's fascinating for me to think about like all of the life that we lived in the making of this. And I really do hope that it like just helps parents feel some relief. And not that like anyone needs permission to take shortcuts or to do what works for them, but I think a little bit because of the way that social media works, we kind of do need someone to tell us that it's okay to buy the thing that makes it easier, because there is just like guilt everywhere. So I hope it helps with that too.
Yeah, Amy, it's so great. I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I love your vision on how this all gets put together. It's just like, it's so real. I don't know, for me at least, it feels very realistic. It feels like you just take the pressure off, but the outcome is still, let's eat whole foods together.
Yep.
Right? Which is like a lovely goal and tradition to have.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. Well, I'm so excited to see your new cookbook.
Thank you.
I can't wait to check it out.
I can't wait for it to soon. It will be out in the world.
It's going to be amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. Have a good day.
You too. Is that all uploaded and everything?
Yeah, I'll stop the recording and then it'll like upload and we'll see we'll see how it works.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
I hope it's great. I love talking to you.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
Bye.